Welcome to the Sustainable Heat Podcast, the go-to series for professionals in district heating, energy, and consultancy. Join us to stay ahead in the energy transition.
Green hydrogen production.
Green hydrogen. It's often touted as the fuel of the future.
Right.
And for good reason, because it's this clean burning fuel that can be used in all sorts of applications.
Right.
From transportation to power generation.
Right.
And the green part means that it's produced using renewable energy.
Right. Right.
So you're using renewable energy sources like wind or solar power to split water molecules and extract hydrogen.
Gotcha.
And the cool thing about this process is that it generates a lot of heat.
Okay.
That can be captured and used for district heating.
So we're not just using hydrogen as a clean fuel, we're also using the process of making hydrogen to generate sustainable heat.
Exactly. It's a bonus round of sustainability.
Yeah, I love it.
And the report highlights Ivanko in Hofors, Sweden, where they started doing this in 2023, and the planned Helsinki hydrogen hub in Vuosaari, Finland.
So as we're transitioning towards this hydrogen economy, we're also finding ways to make that transition itself more sustainable.
Exactly.
It's a really exciting time for innovation.
It is.
In the energy sector.
Go ahead.
So many possibilities.
It really is. And while we're on the topic of hydrogen, we can't forget about the potential of hydrogen-fueled CHP plants.
CHP.
CH stands for Combined Heat and Power.
Oh.
Which means these plants generate both electricity and heat simultaneously.
So it's like getting two essential services from one clean source of energy.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And by using hydrogen as the fuel source, we can, decarbonize both the electricity and heat output.
Yeah.
The report mentions a planned facility in Vaasa, Finland, that's set to be operational by 2026.
Okay, so we've got fuel refineries, green hydrogen production, and hydrogen-powered CHP plants. It's clear that the potential for heat recycling is huge.
It is.
But are there any other industries getting in on this action?
Absolutely. The report highlights all sorts of industries that are finding creative ways to, capture and reuse their waste heat.
Okay, cool. Like what?
For example, they talk about the potential of petrochemical plants.
Petrochemical plants. Those are the facilities that process oil and gas into, all sorts of chemicals and materials, right?
Precisely. And as these plants transition towards using renewable feedstocks like biomass, they're also generating a lot of excess heat that can be captured and used for district heating.
Right.
And Preem in Lysekil, Sweden, has been doing this since 2021.
Wow. It's amazing how many industries are finding ways to make their operations more sustainable, not just by switching to renewable energy sources, but also by finding ways to reuse the energy they're already generating.
It's a really holistic approach to sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's inspiring to see so many companies embracing this shift.
It is. And it's not just about those big industrial players either. Even some of the less obvious sources of heat are being tapped into.
Like what? Well, I don't know. You tell me. What kind of less obvious sources are we talking about? Okay. Well, for one, they highlight the potential of capturing heat from large electric transformers.
Electric transformers, those big metal boxes you see in power substations.
The very same.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually generate a surprising amount of heat as part of their normal operation.
Wow.
And so instead of just letting that heat, dissipate into the atmosphere, we can capture it and use it.
So we're talking about harnessing the heat generated by the infrastructure that delivers our electricity. That's pretty cool.
It is.
What other kind of hidden sources of heat did they uncover?
They also talk about the potential of capturing heat from emerging industrial processes, particularly in the food production sector.
The food industry. I can see how they might use a lot of heat for things like cooking and processing, but are we talking about capturing that heat and using it to heat buildings?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They mentioned projects involving coffee roasteries, vegetable protein production facilities, even algae production sites.
Algae production.
Algae, yeah.
That's a new one.
It's a rapidly growing field with a lot of potential. And as these new industries scale up, they're going to be generating even more excess heat that can be harnessed for district heating.
That's really cool. It's exciting to think about how these innovative industries are not only creating sustainable products, but they're also contributing to a more sustainable energy system at the same time.
It's a great example of how sustainability can be a driving force for innovation.
Yeah.
Across multiple sectors.
And speaking of innovation, the report dives deep into a sector that's already a major player in district heating. Combined heating and cooling, or CHC.
CHC.
The dynamic duo.
The dynamic duo.
Of the thermal energy. We touched on this briefly earlier, but can you remind us what CHC is all about and why it's so efficient?
Sure. So CHC systems are all about leveraging the synergy between heating and cooling networks.
Okay.
It's based on simple, but I think brilliant principle. The heat generated in the process of cooling something can be captured and used to heat something else.
So it's like a 2-for-1 deal on thermal energy. We're essentially getting like free heat from the process of cooling buildings.
Exactly.
I love that.
And the report explores all sorts of CHC systems, from like centralized systems with large central cooling plants to decentralized systems where the cooling is generated by smaller, more localized units.
Okay, so let's start with the centralized approach. How does that work?
Okay, so in a centralized CHC system, you typically have a large cooling plant that distributes chilled water to multiple buildings for air conditioning.
Okay.
But here's the clever part. The heat that's generated in the process of chilling that water is captured and used to heat water for the district heating network.
So it's a closed loop of thermal energy, maximizing efficiency and minimizing waste.
Exactly.
That's awesome. It sounds incredibly efficient, especially for like large scale applications like, office buildings or shopping malls.
Right, yeah. And they highlight several examples, including Sandvika, Norway. There's Stockholm Exergi in Stockholm, Sweden, with a system from 1995. And Helsinki, Finland has one from 2006.
Wow.
So it's a technology that's been proven effective over many years and across different climates.
It's impressive to see how long some of these systems have been in operation. But what about those decentralized CHC systems you mentioned? How do they work and what are the advantages there?
So decentralized CHC systems are pretty interesting. They typically distribute heat and cold through a common network, usually operating at lower temperatures.
Okay.
And instead of having one, big central cooling plant, they use decentralized heat pumps, often located at customer substations.
So instead of having one big brain managing the whole system, we have smaller, more localized brains managing individual buildings or groups of buildings.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
And the beauty of this decentralized approach is that it allows for greater flexibility and customization. Each customer substation can be tailored to the specific needs of the building it's serving.
Exactly.
And plus it can be more resilient to disruptions.
Right.
Because if one substation fails, it doesn't bring down the whole network.
Exactly. They mentioned several examples, including the ETH Hungerberg campus in Zurich, Switzerland, which has been operating a multi-energy system with geothermal heating and cooling since 2013. There's the Mölndal district in Sweden, which has a decentralized CHC system as part of the Reward Heat project, which was launched in 2014. And then there's Paris-Saclay University in France, which started implementing a decentralized CHC system in 2017.
It's exciting to see so much innovation happening, It seems like CHC is really gaining momentum as a sustainable and efficient solution for both heating and cooling.
It is.
But before we move on, I'm kind of curious about specific application of CHC that caught my eye. Data center, consuming tons of electricity to power all those servers that, keep the internet humming.
Keep the internet alive.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's the silver lining. All that energy consumption generates a ton of heat.
So much heat.
And that heat can be captured and used for district heating.
Got it.
That's amazing. But how do they actually capture heat from these data centers? It's not like they're burning fuel or anything.
Right. So it's not combustion that's generating the heat.
Right.
It's the constant flow of electricity through all those servers and other electronic equipment.
Right.
And that heat has to be removed to keep the servers from, overheating.
Right, of course.
So traditionally, that's been done using air conditioning, which essentially just pumps the heat outside where it's wasted.
Right. So instead of letting all that heat escape into the atmosphere, we're finding ways to capture it and use it to heat buildings.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And the report dives into two main approaches for doing this: air-cooled data centers and water-cooled data centers. So let's start with air-cooled. How do they capture the heat in those systems?
So in air-cooled systems, they use heat exchangers to transfer the heat from the hot exhaust air to water, which can then be used for district heating.
It's like a giant radiator for the internet, releasing all that excess heat into the water that then flows out to heat homes and businesses.
That is a great way to put it, yes.
And they're already doing this in some places, right?
Oh, yeah. They mentioned several examples. Bideo Group in Vallentuna, Sweden, started in 2019. Glee SYS in Falkenberg. Sweden implemented this in 2020, and BS Energy in Braunschweig, Germany, started capturing heat from an air-cooled data center in 2021.
It's impressive how quickly this idea is catching on.
It is.
But what about those water-cooled data centers? Are they even more efficient at capturing heat?
They can be.
Yeah.
So water-cooled data centers offer even greater potential because they use water as the primary cooling medium.
Right.
So this means that the water is already at a higher temperature, making it much easier to integrate into a district heating system.
So they're essentially preheating the water for the district heating network, saving even more energy in the process.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And the report highlights Acetech in Aalborg, Denmark, and Darmstadt Technical University in Germany has been using a direct hot water cooling system to heat their campus since 2021.
Okay, so we've got fuel refineries, green hydrogen production, petrochemical plants, electric transformers, even data centers, all contributing to this network of sustainable heat. It's kind of wild how interconnected all these industries are becoming,
It is, and the report also touches on the potential of battery manufacturing.
Battery manufacturing.
Yeah, so as the demand for electric vehicles and renewable energy storage grows, so too will the need for batteries.
Of course.
And the process of manufacturing those batteries generates a lot of heat.
Okay.
So we're talking about capturing the heat from the factories that make the batteries that power our electric cars.
It's like a sustainable energy loop.
It is. It's a fantastic example of how sustainability can be a driving force for innovation.
Yeah.
Across multiple sectors.
It all ties together.
It does.
Okay, so we've got batteries. What else?
Well, we talked about greenhouses, but they also discuss the potential for heat recovery throughout the entire food supply chain, from processing and packaging to distribution and even retail.
So we're squeezing every last drop of sustainability out of our food system.
Love that analogy.
Yeah.
And the report mentions Centralized, Denmark, which has been implementing this since 2017.
That's awesome.
As an example of a city that's taking this really holistic approach.
It's truly amazing how many sources of heat we're discovering when we start to think, outside the box and look beyond those conventional sources.
It highlights the potential of a circular economy.
Yeah.
Where waste is minimized and resources are constantly reused and repurposed.
I love it. And speaking of circularity, we can't forget about one of the most abundant and often overlooked sources of heat. Sewage water.
Sewage water, yes. Not the most glamorous source of heat,
right,
but it's surprisingly sustainable.
Yeah.
And readily available.
Wait, are we seriously talking about using the heat from what we flush down the toilet to heat our homes?
We are. And it's a really effective way to capture and reuse waste heat. So treated sewage water actually contains a lot of heat that can be extracted and used for district heating.
So we're not just recycling our waste, we're recycling the heat from our waste.
Exactly.
That's next level sustainability.
It is, yeah. And they highlight Skellingda in Malmö, Sweden, which has been doing this since 2018.
We've gone from relying on those dirty fossil fuels to harnessing the power of the sun, the earth, even our own waste.
Yeah. It's a pretty remarkable transformation.
It is. And it really speaks to human ingenuity and our ability to solve those complex challenges.
It does.
But before we get too carried away celebrating our success, I think it's important to remember that the journey towards truly sustainable district heating, it's not over yet.
Right.
So what are the next steps? What else do we need to do to make sure that these systems are truly sustainable and resilient in the long run?
That's a great question. And thankfully, the report dives into some of the key factors that'll be really crucial for the continued success of district heating decarbonization.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm all ears. Let's hear those key takeaways and see what lessons we can learn from all these inspiring examples.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've seen all these amazing solutions for decarbonizing district heating, harnessing renewable energy and reusing waste heat in ways I never even thought of.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it?
It really is. It makes me so optimistic to see this level of ingenuity and collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways? What have we learned from these examples, and what's going to be crucial for making district heating truly sustainable in the long run?
Well, showcasing individual projects is great.
Right.
But I think it's even more important to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. What are the common threads, the underlying principles that can guide us as we try to scale up these solutions and make district heating a cornerstone of a sustainable energy future?
Okay, yeah. What are those common threads? What did these researchers learn from all these real-world examples?
So they actually identified 7 key factors that they found to be consistently present in those successful decarbonization projects. It's not just about technology. It's more about a, holistic approach.
Okay.
That includes policy, planning, even customer engagement.
Yeah.
So Factor number one, they call it degrees of freedom. Essentially what that means is having a diverse toolbox of solutions. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to decarbonizing district heating.
So recognizing that every city, every neighborhood, every building might have unique needs constraints. And we need to be flexible in how we approach it.
Yeah, what works great in Copenhagen might not be the best fit for Cairo or Cape Town. You really have to understand the local context, the available resources, the existing infrastructure, and then choose the right tools for the job.
Right. Okay, what's factor number 2?
Lower distribution temperatures.
Ah, yes. We've talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah, we have. It's worth emphasizing, though. Lower temperatures often mean lower costs and higher efficiency.
Right. And it makes it possible to use those lower grade heat sources that might otherwise just be wasted.
It's a basic principle of thermodynamics. The smaller the temperature difference between the heat source and the heat sink,
right,
the more efficient the heat transfer process.
What's number 3 on their list?
The versatility of heat pumps. They can upgrade low supply temperatures, bridge temperature gaps, enhance flexibility.
And they're becoming more cost-effective all the time.
They are.
All right, what's factor number 4?
Digitalization.
Ah, yes, data-driven solutions.
Yeah, using data to optimize, monitor, control these really complex systems. We saw that over and over again.
Yeah, we did.
In the examples that we looked at, from those smart substations to those systems that are, tracking circulation flows.
It's amazing how data allows us to manage these complex systems with such precision and efficiency.
Absolutely. And as sensor technology gets better and better and data analytics become more sophisticated,
right,
we can expect to see even more progress in this area.
For sure. All right, what's the 5th factor that contributes to successful district heating decarbonization?
Clear supply responsibilities.
Okay, so making sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
That there's good communication.
Exactly.
Between the energy provider and the heat sources and the customers.
Yeah. When you're integrating industrial waste heat or tapping into geothermal resources, it's really crucial to have clear agreements and protocols in place.
So everyone knows their role and they're all working together.
Right. To ensure a reliable and sustainable supply of heat.
Like a well-choreographed dance.
I like that.
Keeping that energy flowing smoothly. All right, number 6 on the list, what is it?
Supportive institutional frameworks.
Supportive institutional frameworks.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So that means having the right policies, regulations, funding mechanisms in place that incentivize decarbonization and make it easier to actually implement these solutions.
So it's not just about the technology, it's about creating an environment where these sustainable solutions can thrive.
Exactly. Having the right policies can level the playing field, make renewable energy more competitive, encourage investment in these new technologies. The report even highlights specific national programs in places like Czechia, France, and Germany that are really pushing things forward.
It's encouraging to see governments stepping up and supporting this transition.
Yeah.
Okay, we're on the last one now. What's the final factor on the list?
Digital planning models.
Digital planning models. Okay. Tell me more about those.
So these are basically data-driven tools that allow cities to map out their energy needs, identify the best areas for district heating expansion, and, simulate different decarbonization scenarios.
So it's like having a crystal ball for district heating, allowing planners to look into the future and make smarter decisions.
Yeah, exactly. The report highlights the Heat Roadmap Europe project as a great example.
Okay.
How these digital planning models are helping cities plan for a more sustainable future.
It's really incredible to see how data, technology, and policy are all coming together to drive innovation in this space. I have to say, I started this whole deep dive thinking it would be all about pipes and boilers, but it's so much more than that,
It isn't.
It's about interconnectedness, ingenuity, and a collective will to create a more sustainable future.
It really is inspiring.
It is. So, as we wrap up here, I want to leave our listeners with a question. If we can make this much progress decarbonizing district heating, what other energy challenges can we solve if we put our minds together and really collaborate?
That's a great question to ponder.
Well, thanks so much for joining me on this journey into the world of sustainable heating. I've learned so much, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds.
Me too.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. We hope you learned something new today, and maybe even feel inspired to explore this topic further on your own. Until next time, stay curious and keep those thermostats set to sustainable.